I'm sorry. I literally
Nice
just
one,
pulled that out of
Zoolander.
my. I literally just pulled that from my back pocket right when it happened. I was like, "Oh, that'd be funny." Hey guys, hello everybody out there in viewer land. Welcome back to the Battle Bros podcast. If you're joining us for the first time, hey, how are you? Welcome. If you're coming back to see us, welcome back. Exactly. So, if you've not been on our show before, this is a Battle Bros podcast. I am Mac. This guy over here is Alamo. Welcome. We are a veteran lifestyle podcast where we talk about different issues regarding veterans and the military and veteran communities at large. So we hope you enjoy. Sit, kick back, enjoy the show, and yeah. So all the good stuff. How you doing there, brother?
Doing out freaking standing.
Congratulations, by the way. I know you. So if you weren't here last week, we took a week off because this guy celebrated his 10th wedding anniversary. So golf clap.
Yes, and yes.
And the crowd goes wild.
Yeah.
Crowd noise. Anyway, we're a low budget show here, folks. So we got to make that crowd noise any way we can. So, well, congratulations, man. That's no small feat nowadays. I mean, the average.
You ain't lying, bro.
Yeah, they say the average marriage doesn't last like maybe what 3-4 years.
I believe it's roughly around there, which is extremely unfortunate.
Yeah, but don't worry about it. You made it. 10 years, man. Congratulations. It's an awesome feat.
Hell yeah.
And many happy blessings to you and your lovely missus. And here's to the next 10 years. So
yeah.
So good stuff. So before we took a week's hiatus to celebrate this guy over here, I'm just adjusting my camera here a minute, folks. Sorry. We had our what did we do? Oh yeah, we did the fourth installment for the veteran interview panel with Melissa. Again, thank you to Melissa for being on the show. Yes. That was a great interview, one that we were really looking forward to doing just to have the female perspective of things. You know, we've had several gentlemen that have been on the show, friends of ours and whatnot. So it's always nice to have that unique, fresh approach. So we are going to hopefully have more of those coming throughout this season and into the next. So
yeah. I do kind of want to apologize to the Bro Legion just a little bit on in terms of just how long it took me to get the episode out.
Considering he was on a second honeymoon.
Yes.
Wink.
Yeah. So yeah, it took me a little bit of time.
Then of course, spoke out of turn.
There were some small technical issues that ended up happening downloading the video to get it, established and put onto the Anchor platform and everything else. But
as the guy was selling the bumper stickers in Forrest Gump said, shit happens.
So, it happens.
What shit?
Sometimes. It's a great movie.
It's a fantastic movie. Here, take a yellow shirt. Nobody likes that color anyway. And he makes a smiley face. I mean, come on. There's just so much stuff they could attribute to Forrest Gump. It's like, oh, that's dope.
Oh, God, yeah.
So dope. Congratulations. How do you feel? I gotta pay. I believe said he had to go pee. I have about 14 Dr. Peppers. So good.
Oh my god.
So good.
Back when Dr. Pepper was actually made with real freaking products or ingredients.
Yeah, not the HFCS, the high fructose corn syrup. Yeah. But what's interesting is that the diet stuff is worse for you than the regular stuff. So like the non-nutritive sweetener.
Yeah,
like that stuff's terrible. If you
aspartame, acesulfame, and I believe what's the other one? There's 3. Aspartame, acesulfame, and something else.
And if you're like me, where you've actually had the job experience of having to do operator level maintenance on like one of those freestyle Coke machines, Bruh. Like I mean, it's not that bad, but like you see how like disgusting those things get after a while. You're just like, ugh. So
yeah,
but yeah, like I don't drink diet. I shouldn't drink as much soda as I do, but hey, we all gotta have fixes. Yeah. Anyway, so So again, welcome back, everybody. We're glad to be back. We've kind of had some ups and downs going in regards to consistency on the show. Thank you for bearing with us. We're glad that you guys get to come back and see it. Jesus Christ, that was loud in my freaking ear. Just hear, it's just like, what died? Goodness, man. My headphones like crazy loud. As I was saying, folks, before I had a freaking ear spasm over here.
Yeah.
Exactly. We appreciate everybody for stopping by to check out the show, for telling your friends, telling your family members, coworkers, your loved ones, fellow service members. That's how we're slowly growing, and it's just been an amazing experience so far. It's crazy that we're at episode 032 right now, episode 32, and we have had viewership all over the world. Ireland, Britain,
India,
India.
I believe Portugal was one of them.
Yeah,
too,
I was like,
which kind of threw me for a freaking loop. I was like,
yeah,
what?
We got to pull the John right here, man.
Yeah,
nice. Yeah. Oh, I forgot that part. My bad.
You guys are getting all over the world now, bro. Yeah, bro.
Miss you, buddy. Love you, buddy.
Yeah, man.
Man, I wish we would have thought about having this show and that he was still here, because I would have loved to interview him. Just be like, it's just a laughing shit, dude. And the stories too, man. Oh my god, what a dude.
Oh god, yeah.
And if you don't know who we're referring to, we'll get to that at the end of the show, like we do always. But let's now we got the pleasantries aside. Let's get out here and let's talk and have our weekly fireside chat. How about it? So, last few episodes that we've done, we had another veteran interview. We talked about mindset. We also talked about burnout and how it regards to certain people. Yeah. So, kind of with this week, we've had some interesting events of the last week or so around the world. We just celebrated Memorial Day, which, if you didn't catch our post on, I believe it was on our Instagram. Is that correct?
Instagramo.
So we did a post on Instagram basically talking about why Memorial Day can be good and bad. A lot of veterans feel a little bit out of place and stuff when you say, "Oh, happy Memorial Day." It's like, it's not about us. It's about those that pays the ultimate sacrifice. And go out and live your life and enjoy yourself and enjoy the freedoms that they died fighting to protect. So
correct.
There's that. We've also had some other things happen, some tragedies and whatnot, not to get too far into the political spectrum of things, but it's going to kind of have a little bit of bearing on what we're talking about tonight. And if you haven't guessed, or if you haven't seen any of the posts from us this week's episode is about service. And this was kind of geared around the fact that Memorial Day just passed Monday of this week. But also because of some other things that we'll get into. And again, we're going to do our best to kind of be a little bit even-keeled and neutral on the political spectrum of things, because let's face it, there's enough of that stuff out there. We don't need to get into that. That's not why you tune into us. You tune in here because, like, this guy has got, a pretty good sense of humor, and I just have a ginormous head. So he's looking at me. He's just like,
ginormous head with a ginormous brain.
Nice save, dude. I appreciate that. Thanks. That's awesome. Anyway, so because it was Memorial Day, we're going to talk about service and why that's important, what it is, and what that legacy of service looks like. So we'll start off like we always do, and we're going to talk about the definition. So what is service? The verb service. What is the action? Okay. So service is defined as the act of helping or doing work for someone.
Correct.
In addition to that, we're going to talk about something that takes a little bit further. We're going to talk about selfless service. And that definition is the lack of the pursuit of one's own interests for the betterment of others. Okay. So how can we kind of like how can we broach a subject and kind of like ease our way into the wading pool of discussion? So let's think about it. When we talk about selfless service, I can pretty much think of, two examples from within the last 100 years that are going to be very applicable answers. Okay. Unfortunately, both of them involve wartime.
Yeah.
But you have the attack on Pearl Harbor, which catapulted the United States into World War II. And what happened when that unfortunate tragedy happened? We had a lot of people go and they ended up donating blood or, volunteering to do this, that, or the other. And a lot of people just surged into the service and were like, we're going to do our part. This is something that's bigger than all of us. Okay. So if you can kind of understand where I'm going with this one, let's bring it and make it a little bit more temporary, and let's talk about 9/11. So, yes, we're talking 60 years later. We're talking, almost 60 years, because
it was almost 60 years. Yeah, almost.
Yeah, because you had December 7th, 41, then you had September 11th. So just a few months shy of being 60 years to the day. How many people signed up because of 9/11? This guy, he was a little bit later. I was, I was a senior in high school. He was a freshman. You've heard us tell these stories. We're not going to, go over them again for the umpteenth time, but
yeah,
you had all those people do that. You had people standing in line to give blood around the country. It was a big thing. We were attacked. So people jumped aside and they raised their hand and said, I'm going to go do my part. I'm going to go do this. If I can't serve, I'm going to go donate blood, or I'm going to help and start some kind of drive in my neighborhood or my community or whatnot. So
had to wet your whistle.
What the whistle? But yeah, and then to kind of go 9/11 a little bit further, you talk about, one of the things to talk about service and, kind of giving that, kind of paying it forward to those guys that did that was, good example was, why am I blanking on the guy right now? Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart went up to Capitol Hill. I want to say it was like last year, the year before.
I believe it was last year. Yeah.
I think it was 2021, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And he ended up championing for the fund that was established for all of the first responders that worked on the pile at Ground Zero.
Yeah.
And they were told, and again, please understand, we're not getting into politics. We're just kind of going loosely based off this. If you want to look up this stuff on your own, do what old school people did back in the day. They would report the news, give you enough information, research it yourself, formulate your own opinion. We're not here to do this or that or the other for the most part. If it's something like, we're talking about Afghanistan, we're going to get into brass tacks about how some shit happened there. But regardless, when basically they were talking about how that fund was running out of money to take care of these first responders that were dying off due to these unknown illnesses from being around all the chemicals and the substances in 9/11. You had that burning jet fuel from where the plane struck. You had asbestos. You had all this stuff, all that concrete that was pulverized into pretty much talcum powder that everyone was breathing in, and all this stuff. And how, your SCBAs probably weren't doing too much good for that. That's not what that's designed for. It was designed to keep you alive and breathing in a fire and stuff. So Jon Stewart went up there and spoke on behalf of these people and gave a very passionate and just heartfelt speech to these legislators up on Capitol Hill, and was like, we told these guys we're going to have their back. Now we don't. Like, what gives? And if you haven't seen that, I would really recommend going on YouTube or going, somewhere where you can view videos online. I say YouTube just because of the fact that they have damn near anything you want to watch, and just look up that Jon Stewart speech in front of Congress, in front of the legislatures and stuff. It's amazing. Like, you have a guy who's known for being very sarcastic and satirical on his shows and whatnot, just by the nature of his comedy and the subject matter, following politics and stuff. And here he is, and he's like, this is what we do as human beings. We should be taking care of people. So what did you want to add on that there, Macho?
No, excuse me.
Need to wet the whistle?
I do need to wet the whistle.
Sure.
You know, it kind of just it you know, it warms my heart to see that there are, and you know, again, we say it a lot. We try not to get into the weeds in terms of like anything political or kind of like, you know, off of that,
But it happens.
it does happen. You'll notice a lot of celebrities, as I've seen in a lot of situations, a lot of celebrities tend to avoid, trying to think of ways to say this in a way that doesn't get us flagged or doesn't.
Yeah.
Let's just say that there aren't a lot of celebrities out there that are particularly self-aware or
Willing to risk their neck to just put it out in the line and just be like, here's the real deal, guys.
yeah. You'll notice that a lot of them kind of tend to live in
The microcosmic bubble.
and
And you know what? Hey, you
yeah,
know what?
it's yeah.
Good for you. You've earned that right. I mean, you make a living doing an art, and that's cool. And you
Yeah.
know what? That's great. Provide for your family and all this stuff. And that's all I'm going to say because I will get us flagged. So I'm just going to keep on keeping on. Do what Joe Dirt says. Sometimes you got to keep on keeping on, man.
Mhm.
But you know, in order to, and I guess let me kind of take over here, pal. But like
No,
he
you're
was
good,
saying,
man.
you know, just the thing that I remember most. You know, like I've said it on my personal Facebook page. I've said it. I've seen it other places too. Like I would never ever wish for another 9/11 because that was a tragically horrible day.
Yeah.
But the America that we experienced after 9/11 on September 12th was a beautiful thing because we stopped
Yeah.
being left, right, black, white, Republican, Democrat, whatever. We stopped being African Americans. We stopped being Indian. We were just Americans. And
Yeah.
that was just such a beautiful thing. And unfortunately, like we've talked about in previous shows, there were some side effects of, you know, of that. Like the Sikh culture and the Sikh community had a lot of backlash because everyone thought that they were also Muslim, which is not quite anywhere near the same thing as being
not
Muslim.
quite accurate. Yeah.
And when I say Muslim, I mean radical. When I'm
Yeah.
talking like one of those radical splinterizations of the Muslim faith and whatnot,
Mhm.
not trying to loop everybody under the same net or whatnot. So understand that too. But yeah, like that was kind of one of the big things. So, you know, just in order, and it's important that people go back and look at that stuff and just understand that why we did that. You know,
Yeah.
I remember clearly, you know, just how I felt that day. And then afterwards I was like, I think this army thing sounds pretty good. And like, I knew, you know, I was hoping that when I deployed, I was like, I hope we go to Afghanistan because yeah, like that we need to take the fight to them and all stuff. And that, you know, that patriotism you felt and that sense of duty and the purpose and service. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. So before we get, you know, too far off subject, let's kind of circle back around and rally up and continue on to the topic OBJ.
Yeah.
So we looked up a couple of different articles. I'm going to read over one that I found. Alamo found a few, and I'm going to let him kind of take the point on those. So there was an article that we had in here, and this kind of goes off of like it's kind of going off of the aspect of community service, which is still service in its own right. And, you know, we're not just broadly painting with a broad paintbrush. Yes. Are we talking about military service? Sure, of course. But just service in general. Okay. It could be high school. It could be college. It could be community service. Let me kind of start reading on this a little bit. So, this is from an article from Stevenson University, and this has a section called The Impact of Service. It says the psychology of volunteering is a well-researched topic. Whether one is serving or being served, outreach and volunteer efforts have a monumental impact on the lives of those involved. Volunteering involving a trip or through activities such as mentorship and construction impacts the mentality and communities impacts the mentality of the communities and those helping. As a volunteer, engaging in community service can vastly widen one's perspective and outlook on life. By being placed in a situation that might be unfamiliar to them, they can grow as a person and cultivate a sense of how the world operates out of their comfort zone and environment. And it's so funny. Like we've said it so many times, how it's kind of like, I would imagine, like for somebody like a pastor or a preacher in a church, how you set off on a topic and then you have all these things in your life happen which are just so apropos, and it's like, yes, that's totally relevant to what the hell we're going to talk about. Not that they would say what the hell. There, but reading that, I was going through my Facebook today, and I have a relative of mine. It's my cousin's daughter. So I guess it's my second cousin. She and her husband just went to a country in Africa on a mission trip and I think they're going to be there for like maybe a year, somewhere just shy of, or maybe just over. And one of the first things that they've done there in the first month that they've been there is they constructed a well for this village that they're at. And usually you had one of two things would have to happen for them to have water. They would have to go and walk 10 plus miles to another village that had a well or a stream, or they had to utilize the same water that was being used and consumed by the livestock. So it's like that's how people get sick. So when they saw that water coming up out of that well, all these people were just like amazed, and they were talking. Now, obviously, they had the religious component because they were over there as like a church mission and whatnot, and they kind of segued that into a little bit of gospel and all that kind of stuff. But I was just like reading it, and I remembered that what I was going to read here, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get so much more of an experience, and like it was saying in here, you can cultivate a sense of how the world operates out of their comfort zone. How many times, Alamo, have we said, there's people that we went to high school with that still live in the same town, that still go to the dang Beef O'Brady's up here in Seffner, Florida on a Friday night because that's where everybody hangs out, Whereas you've gone and like I somehow got talking about you with my daughter yesterday. And I was explaining like all the places you've been, how you ended up at Fort Lewis, which is now JBLM, Joint Base Lewis McChord, and then how you went over to Vilsic and all that stuff. And she was just like, whoa. And it's wonderful to see in a kid's eyes that they don't realize that it's not just, okay, the area that you live in. There's so much more outside of this little box of community. Like there's the county, there's the state, there's the country, there's the world.
There's a much bigger world out there.
And like once you get to travel in the world, it's like it just doesn't seem that big anymore. It kind of gives you a little bit more perspective. You're like, yeah, it takes 16 freaking hours to fly over to Afghanistan or Iraq or some stuff or whatever the crap, and it gives you some perspective. Like I remember a joke that Lewis Black said, great comedian, just so sarcastic. Like he's one of my spirit animals, He says if he's talking about going to Sydney, Australia to perform a show. He's like, if I have to go and fly 22 hours to go to another country, when I get there, they should have the courtesy to speak another language. I didn't fly all this way to hear English again. What the fuck? It's kind of like, and that joke, if you didn't understand that joke, but like having traveled and having flown on airplanes and going all over the world. I'm not a corporate jet set or anything like that, but like just having that experience, it's like, yeah, that makes that much more funny. What do you have to add about that so far, man? About the volunteering and all that stuff. Do you have a different sense of things than once you got to go to Germany and once you went to Washington State and all that kind of stuff? I know it's still in the country, but did it just give you a little bit of perspective?
I felt for me it was the whole thing of excuse me.
You're not dying on me, are you?
I might be. I don't know. but for me, the whole thing came
The
down.
answer is no.
No. It just, for me, things just kind of started opening up in the sense of when I finally left home and I
Mhm.
finally started going out and, training and doing all the things that we were supposed to be doing, it just, it filled me with a sense of purpose that I hadn't had in I think quite a bit of time. Excuse me, quite a bit of time. Um, I actually felt like I was working towards, a greater cause, like a greater mission. Um, and then of course, obviously when we talk about things like recently and kind of just, finding things that kind of, I'll just go out and say it, like, I relate, to like Flipside, like Flipside is very quickly becoming kind of like a staple in terms of how I kind of want to, not necessarily exactly with children, but I would say that, you know, that's the kind of service I want to bring to the community, is just kind of that lighthearted, like, hey, like, you know, we can do better when we do better together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Um,
Dude, you should write that down. That's a great tagline, by the way. You should just we do better when we do better together. Like you should write that down. We might use that. We copyright it first. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't steal it.
no, don't do it.
Anyway.
It's ours. But yeah, man. So that's kind of where it was for me. Like military service, though, like as much as much as much as there were
You
times that
couldn't get that out 3 times. You're like, so this
as
must be good.
as much as service sucked, at the same damn time it fucking ruled.
Oh
and
yeah.
and you know and again, it just comes down to that feeling of, in some way, shape, or form, you're making a difference.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that right there, like, to relate it to, like, kind of like our main demographic and why we're doing what we're doing, there are other things that we can do. There are other things that we can do to help bring that sense of purpose back. We don't have to necessarily do something, that's dangerous or that's going to cost us our life in any way, shape, or form. We can do something else.
Yeah.
To make us feel like we're doing something for our community, to give us a purpose. And I think that's broadly kind of, I feel like that's broadly kind of like what our main focus is for this video, for
Yeah.
this for this show, which makes me
This
feel good
episode or this
inside.
show in general?
This, just the show in general, and
Gotcha.
and well, yeah, this episode too.
Both.
Yeah,
Check both damn boxes here, pal.
yeah.
And like I remember, and I can tell you this, talking about military service, some of my best experiences that I had were when I was on state active duty, like being in the National Guard. A lot of times, and every time it was hurricane season, man, you made sure you had all your TA-50 and all your field gear ready to go, because, I mean, we had in 2004 we had 4 hurricanes come through in a relatively decent amount of time, like a short amount of time,
I
and
remember
we ended
that,
up going all over that state. I mean, you were still in high school, I believe, but I mean, just sitting
that
out.
was 04, right?
It was 04. Yep.
Yeah, I was in my junior year.
The battalion had just come back from. I felt so bad for those guys too, because we had all the guys that were deployed to Iraq when everything first kicked off. They had just returned home after 18 months in country, and these guys got home. Were home for maybe a week, a couple days to a week, and they're back out on the streets doing, state act hurricane duty,
Yeah.
which it sucked for them, but at the same time, like it's such a for me, it was just such a wonderful experience because you have people that literally have nothing, and you're out there just you're a face of somebody that that can help them. Whether it was food and water distro points, just helping them like running traffic. I remember standing out in front of some Walmart on Colonial Drive on State Road 50 out in Orlando, and it wasn't anything special, but you're just out there running traffic and stuff. And I was like, it was so cool because you're helping the people through all this stuff because the first storm came through and just wrecked Orlando. It was terrible. So there's no traffic lights, there's no electricity to a lot of places. And these people would just come up out of the goodness of their hearts. And we had so many people just stop and they're just like, hey, you guys are busting your butts. Here's a case of water. We got you guys some food from like Boston Market. I'd never had Boston Market before. I'm like, this stuff's pretty awesome. Like, so and it was a cool
Boston Market's the shit, man.
Boston Market's wicked smart though, wicked awesome,
wicked smart, wicked awesome.
So just that whole experience of just being there for people, and actually and just like different types of duty that we had working with where we did shut up. I just knew I said that word and you went, oh, look what you did. Look what you did. Just the different types of, the official activities we'd have to do, like working MISCA, Military Support to Civilian Authority, working with cops. I was working a checkpoint.
Mister.
What am I going to do with you? Jesus. But just, everything from working, and just how people just open up. Like we stayed at a church, a big church up in this town of Pace and up on the Panhandle. They our whole company was in there. So like we had the different platoons in different areas and stuff. And that was like our staging area and all this stuff.
Was that basically like you guys is like fucking, you said it was like a staging area?
Well, yeah. So we started off like the first hurricane we were in and around Orlando.
Yeah.
And then we ended up in Kissimmee, kind of over there. And then for one of the next hurricanes, we drove like 2 days. We went from Orlando up to Camp Blanding, and then we went Camp Blanding up to FSU. And from FSU, we drove out to the towns of Milton and Pace and just kind of did stuff out there and whatnot.
Gotcha.
And we actually were at one point, we're at Pensacola Junior College. So like the whole battalion is on cots in the gymnasium, like on the basketball court and stuff. And, we all got, the different companies got tasked out to do different things and whatnot, but it was just, it was hectic. I mean, it wasn't anything boring. You're not out doing a field problem for all this stuff, and you're helping the community. And that was kind of that special sense of purpose that you got being in the National Guard is you serve two masters. Yes, you are in the military, but you also have responsibilities to the governor and to the state of Florida. So you would go into a lot of these small communities and help them out and all that kind of stuff. So that's, call me a weekend warrior, call me nasty girl, whatever. I don't care. I'm proud of that stuff. It was a good experience. Like it really was. You go out there and you'd give help to people that literally just had their lives turned upside down. So it's like, I'm helping you at least. If you want to come up and talk to me for a minute, at least I can do is give you some of my time because you just literally lost your house. It's like, it's crazy. So,
yeah. Plus that full-time pay while you was active.
Yeah. That wasn't bad. If we're talking about all of that, it's like, it's not bad. And then active duty pay. So I was like, so
yeah,
not just drill pay. So, all right. So now I understand, Alamo, you told me you got some articles off of this as well. So why don't you start hitting on those, please?
I did. So
do it.
Okay, so there was a article that I found, and the title of it was "What It Means to Serve Your Country." And in this article, it's actually, it's a fairly short one. It's not a very long article, but the guy basically covers, I believe the guy was like a former Marine or something like that. But I'll kind of just like read right through it for you.
Which is funny because they're very careful in particular about that terminology. They always say prior service Marine.
Yeah.
They don't say former. So I'm just like, Anyway.
Yeah. So and I mean the article is from like 2013, but I think it still's pretty fucking valid even today.
Okay.
Says serving my country was an inflection point. It set my life on a new course. A former Marine, I find myself in a constant pursuit of re-attaining the meaningfulness of those 4 years, chasing the feeling I had when my profession involved working in challenging conditions with teams of great people to solve big problems whose scope exceeded personal gain.
Whew, man, I've already got goosebumps. Keep
Dude,
going on this one, man.
so
right off the bat. Boom.
There you go. That's
Boom.
something that I think speaks to the heart of like pretty much almost every veteran. I mean, unless you're talking about the guys nowadays. I'm fucking with you. No, but
not really. No, really.
He continues. He goes on to say, because I was in the military, I'm allowed to self-identify as having served my country. For thousands of diplomats, intelligence professionals, Peace Corps volunteers, AmeriCorps Vista members, firefighters, policemen, and others working to improve communities around the nation, it would be awkward to say, I served my country. And it shouldn't be. Service to country isn't linked to combat. Though I served as an infantry officer in time of war and went to Iraq, this is where he kind of diverges just a little bit to kind of give like almost like a deeper meaning. And he says, though I served as an infantry officer in time of war and went to Iraq, I've never been in combat. The same is true for about half the Marines with whom I served, and that was in a combat arms unit. While those who bear the costs of battle carry a heavier burden, the rest of us can still rightly say we've served our country. Serving my country means that I gave up my normal progression of my life, high school, college, work, to do something whose end was civic. The same could be said for the veterans of many other types of national service. Nor is the recognition of service to country a result of deployment abroad in austere conditions. As of 2010, and this is a few years ago, but still, or several, I should say, about 40% of the active duty military had never deployed. The statistic is dated, and the Department of Defense has undertaken measures to share the burdens of war more evenly across the department in recent years. But it is still instructive. Furthermore, as anyone who is deployed will tell you, for every military service member living in hard conditions at a patrol base or outpost, there's one who lives in a large headquarters complete with a green bean coffee and Burger King.
Yeah, green coffee. You can't get away from that green bean coffee, baby. Seriously.
Peace Corps volunteers in Sub-Saharan Africa. Good. They were, bro. They were fucking delicious. It made me like be like, oh, my fucking coffee, yes. Because I missed my coffee while I was out there. Yeah, in Sub-Saharan Africa and city year members living on small stipends in places like Chicago, Cleveland, and Detroit certainly deal with more austerity than troops serving in the States or abroad on large headquarters complexes. So, I mean, I want to try and keep it a little bit brief on that one, but like the basic idea is there's more to serving your country than just serving in the military. And he gave you the feels like right there in the beginning of the article, which is, one reason why I really liked it. But he also kind of covers like, dude, like, and this is something that I was talking about just a little bit ago, like just like probably a few minutes prior. There's more to serving your country. You can still, serve your country even when you're not serving your country in a capacity that's combat oriented. And I think that's an issue that a lot of guys have. A lot of guys come home and they don't necessarily have the wherewithal, I would say. Maybe not, I'm not going to say the competence, because I mean I'm pretty sure like any one of us could, you know, be competent enough like to know that we can do something more. But I think a lot of it just comes down to, you know, there's a feeling of you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know sometimes that there's a place where you can go and volunteer. You don't know that there's a place where you can go and try and offer up more time. You know what I mean? And still feel like you're doing a, you know, something big.
I really appreciated the fact that he said right at the beginning, he's like, man, I was a Marine infantry officer and I've never been in combat. It's like you do all that training. I
Yeah.
mean, and it's kind of like with me, you know, I appreciate the fact he said that because that's something I struggled with. You know, number one, I was a reservist. Number two, I was an infantry soldier, but I went over there and didn't really do too many combat operations. We did more security forces type because we were in a security forces battalion task force.
Yeah.
You know, we were kind of doing what would probably be more along the lines aligned with military police duties, where we're doing base security, searching people coming on and off the base and whatnot. We were at a static base. We weren't out there every day, like moving and shaking and all that kind of stuff, hustling through the countryside. So,
Which did you ever get a chance to pull guard duty, like on a fucking detainee?
no, we never had. Because okay, so here's the thing: we had
that shit was always so.
I'll tell you a quick story.
least.
So we were fortunate that we had adjust my microphone here. We had a couple of the entire time that I was there, we had at least two different teams, like ODA special forces teams on our camp, right?
Yar.
They kind of had their own B huts away from everybody, did their own thing, all that kind of stuff. So we had one group of guys that we had in our camp, Delta Company. So in my original organic infantry battalion, Delta Company was vehicularly based. So you're talking, you know, they're running the Ma Deuce, they're running M2s, they're running Mark 19s, all that kind of stuff, and it's all like Humvee based.
Yeah.
So we had those guys. We had a Delta section that was with us, and these guys went out to do something, and then all of a sudden, we got some kind of signal. I forget what the code word was, but we had some kind of signal which just said, "You need to open up the gate, get it open now. We're coming in, rolling hot." And we're just like, "Okay, what the fuck's going on?" So they were out and about, and what had happened was they found some
what
guy.
What happened was
legitimately. There they were, no shit, right here in Afghanistan. Check this out. They were out and about doing some kind of either patrol or doing something, and they found some guy wearing Woodland Digital Woodland Marine Corps style uniform, and it just didn't look right. And they were looking at this guy. He was, some type of, indigenous personnel to that area. So they snatched him up and they brought him back on the base, and that's when they gave the signal like, "Hey, we're coming in. Open up the gate. We're rolling straight through. We're not stopping." And they pretty much took this guy, and they just took him all the way. And this one truck from Delta section drove back over to the SF compound, which was inside of our compound, and that's the last thing we ever heard about it. Like, just that was it. So no, I've never had to pull any stuff on detainee. We never really did anything like that. We did some presence patrols because we were there when they started doing like some electoral stuff. Like they were doing elections and stuff for the first time, which is pretty cool. But never had to like guard or detain or watch any like EPWs or anything like that. Any prisoners of war, for those that don't know the lingo. So, but yeah, that's about it. They had one guy come in there and they just rolled straight on back, dumped him off, and out they went again. So it's like, okay, cool.
So another
please,
one.
Please continue.
Yes, sir. Another one that I found, which I found very interesting and I actually really liked, was it's the title of the article is from, or excuse me, the website that I found it on was in contracting business. Now, this one is a little bit, it's much older, but it still is no less valid.
Is this the
Um,
one with the characteristics?
yes, the
Okay.
service mentality, 7 characteristics of the best. So basically, March 2008, which is, go figure, it's right around the time frame that I actually was in Iraq. I believe around this month of the year at that time, I actually had just come home for R&R. But yeah,
I remember that. I met you at the airport.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. So
You actually change into that suit and stuff. I was like, good for you, man. Good for
yeah,
you.
baby. It says
Quite
basically,
quite a dapper suit too.
you're damn right, baby. Yeah, I can pull off a suit now.
You clean up
The,
good, dude. You clean up good.
um, this says number one of the number one characteristic right now is empathy. It says this trait, one hands down, is the most important characteristic when serving customers or people in general. In so many cases, you get apathy, the exact opposite of empathy. Simply put, empathy is putting yourself in the other person's shoes. How would you feel if what happened to them happened to you? And basically, the author of the article goes on to say, it says, true story. On a recent trip, someone stole my wallet, all my credit cards, checkbook, driver's license, and of course, the few dollars I had in it. I proceeded to start making the appropriate phone calls to each credit card company. There were 4 in all. After explaining who I was and that I was at Disneyland and my wallet was stolen with 4 credit cards, cash, and checkbook, the person on the other line end blurted out name. Like basically, like, I, wait, what?
I need to fill out a report. Name.
And then, and he goes on to say, like, he says, there was no, gee, I'm sorry that happened. Kind of like, wondering like why the hell they didn't take this route. And like, no, oh my, how sad. All they wanted was my name, no empathy at all. And
I'll tell you, man, like as a parent, one of the
yeah,
things that makes me the proudest is the fact that I look at my daughter growing up and she has empathy. She looks at other people and she's just like, are you okay? Like if somebody falls down, she's like one of the people to rush over. Are you okay? Can I help you? And I'm just like, God, you're awesome, kid. Like I'm not trying to like toot my own horn here, but I'm just like, my kid is freaking great. Like she's such a wonderful child. It's
yeah,
just awesome.
it's awesome seeing your kids freaking kind of flourish like that and kind of blossom like
Yeah.
shit, man. It is awesome. Now, where I kind of related the empathy part for folks like us, ladies and guys that serve in the military, is it again? It just comes down to that whole thing of like we're trying we see the people around us and we want to do better for them. You know what I mean? And also, like, even when we're in country, like, you see a lot of the guys that went to war in World War II. I mean, yeah, Pearl Harbor was a great big what you call it for them. But one of the biggest things is just seeing what the enemy, or what we called back then the Axis powers, what they were doing to people in both the Pacific and in the freaking European theaters. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you
Yeah.
had the Nazis back then that were just indiscriminately killing people, and that they felt were different to them. You know what I mean? Killing Jewish people, indiscriminately, like building freaking places like Auschwitz and all these other places. And then the Japanese, going, or like, have you ever heard of the rape of Nanking, or was it the rape of Nanking? I think.
I remember that, but
Eh,
you refresh my memory on that.
Basically, when the Japanese invaded China it was like back in the 1940s at some point. Essentially, I mean, they went through just demolishing places. I mean, If there was any other race just like the Nazis, or I should say not race, excuse me, if there were any other fighting force just like the Nazis, it was the Imperial Japanese. Excuse me, sorry, YouTube. Please don't flag us. I didn't mean it that way. Okay. Disclaimer out of the way. But the Imperial Japanese Army, when they went through, just like the Nazis, they felt like they were racially superior to literally everyone else, which is why they went on trying to conquer everywhere they went. I mean, the Japanese theater, or the Pacific theater, was in many ways, if not just as bad, sometimes much worse than what the Nazis were doing. Now, granted, the Imperial Japanese Army didn't go around basically, gathering up Jews. But when it came to the Chinese, they were just as indiscriminate in their lack of care, lack of empathy, just lack of anything for, the way they treated them. It was actually, if you read up on it, it's actually very it's fucking terrible, man.
I tell you, man, like
you run into a lot of crazy shit that happened back then. Like,
you really hope that more people pay attention during world history and world history honors and all that kind of stuff. Talking about World War II and just all the atrocities that happened. It's just,
God, dude, it was fucking terrible. Absolutely.
All I'm going to say is those that don't learn from history are destined to repeat it. So move along, shall we?
Yeah. Number 2, enthusiasm. You cannot replace appropriate enthusiasm. It's a sign of giving service. It's a sign of giving service that is above and beyond. When a customer or person feels that you are enthusiastic on their behalf, they just fall right into the palm of your hand, exhibiting enthusiasm toward customers or people will give them confirmation that they have made the right decision by choosing you or by trusting you with, taking care of business. It's a confirmation that they've done the right thing, and everyone likes that.
Yeah. I mean, remembering, plenty of times, and you had a customer working in retail and you were just enthusiastic and they were appreciated that. And the next thing you know, you got a return customer. You had the people that always come back and see you. When I was an apartment head, people would always come up to me and they'd be like, "Hey man, what's going on?" I'm like, "Hey, what's going on, Mr. So-and-so?" And you treat them with respect, have that enthusiasm. You're happy to see them because you genuinely are most times.
Damn right.
And then even in, leadership, when you talk about team leaders and squad leaders, that first line or second line supervisor, and they actually, like, you can tell they're not just faking the funk on a nasty dunk. Like, they genuinely are enthusiastic and have empathy for you. Like, "Hey man, how's it going? How's the wife? How's your new baby? Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations." Because it's like I was talking about one of the leaders that I found, that I had in my unit. He was actually in Mogadishu. You find out all these things.
I think you were telling me about that one. Yeah.
And you find out this guy likes to go get pedicures. I'm like, wait a minute. Sorry. Like, seriously? He goes, "Don't do it when you got to come to drill. You need your feet tough." But like, you're not coming to drill? Oh yeah. Mama-san puts the stuff on your feet, makes you feel good. And it just exfoliates. And I'm like, this guy's been in combat. And it's amazing how you just see these other sides. You have, a person is not just a 2-dimensional picture. They're a 3-dimensional shape. They're an amoeba where it just has all these, it changes shape and all this crazy stuff. They have different sides, like a dodecahedron. It's like 10 or 12 different sides, all this crazy stuff. It's like you just see all these different facets of that person. That's what's fascinating about it, man.
Bro.
I'll read the next one, okay?
Yeah. By the way, I just quickly verified it was the rape of Nanking, or as the Chinese would have pronounced it, Nanjing. But yeah, Nanjing.
Trait number 3: responsibility. Being responsible is so important. Obviously, being responsible is living up to a previously agreed upon commitment. It can be a large or small responsibility. Example: I was speaking at a corporate meeting last spring, and when asked my needs, I told them all I needed was a handheld wireless microphone. No problem, the contact told me. She said she had told Bob to have the handheld wireless mic ready when I was supposed to speak. Well, when I got to the meeting room, there was only what they call a lavalier microphone, the type you clip onto your garment. Not the correct one we ordered, but nonetheless, it would have worked. However, my contact was terribly disappointed. My contact said, I gave Bob the responsibility to get you the handheld, and he let me down, which in turn let you down, she continued. I gave Bob the responsibility of getting you the microphone you needed, and he didn't do it. When you agree to something for a coworker, there it is. Sorry. When you agree to something for a coworker or a customer, it's key to be responsible and keep your commitment. And like
Yar.
one of the best things I love about old school mentality is like the gentleman's agreement. We agree to something, we get together, we shake hands. That's it. That's the agreement. That's your responsibility. I'm going to do what I say. You do what you say. Let's call the whole thing off. Let's call it a day.
Dang right. Pretty much, my man.
You got the next one?
Yeah. Next is resiliency. How fast can you pop back into a good mood when something has disrupted your schedule? I think that's a really good question for a lot of us, actually. Or do you pout and fret and linger and wallow in it? The ability to bounce back from any adversity is an important service mentality. Problems arise throughout the workday for everyone with disruptions that we hadn't planned. And, as my mother used to tell me, it's not the problem, it's not the problem, Nancy. It's how you handle it. Oh. As usual, mother's right. How we handle the situation is what makes it good or bad. And there is like, it's funny is actually, believe it or not, I actually had a conversation slightly about something like that with my oldest today, which is actually kind of, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But it was something that, when you think about what the words that were said in that, it's you got to be able to bounce back, and even in military service, especially in combat, you see, hear, and witness things that a lot of the times not many other people experience. And from the perspective of a combat veteran, you're gonna hear people screaming, you're gonna see people die, you're gonna it not necessarily in that order, and never necessarily when you really expect it. Things are gonna pop off, and you have to be able to focus. You have to be able to make sure that you're on point, so that when shit does hit the fan, not only can you still do your job, but you could still be of service to the people that matter most at that point in time, which is your brothers to your left and sisters to your left and your right, which is one of the biggest things that you have to remember in a combat situation, because all you got is each other in those situations.
Oh yeah. So that reminded me of that poem that my grandfather always kind of imparted on other people. It's called Attitude by Charles Swindoll, and it talks about mindset and all that kind of stuff. And then the last line of it is, I am convinced that life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. And that just speaks, that just is an absolute, shout out to resiliency. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Number 5, balance. We view the balance of scales on the symbol of justice as an example of even-handedness and fairness. So too with our workload versus the needs of the customer or other people. There's a fine line between pleasing the customer and losing money for the company. In other words, it shouldn't all be one sided. When a customer needs something, that's fine. If, however, we go over the line, it becomes unbalanced and not fair to either the customer or the company. Finding
Correct.
the right balance at your job and your company will help you maintain the right balance for both you and your company. Is the customer always right? No, the customer always thinks he's right.
That's
You need to
correct.
know the difference between giving away the store and sticking to company guidelines. Balance keeps everything in check. And that's a good example for, like good solid leaders that I've NCOs that I've had in the military. It's like, they make sure, like, I hate to use the example of Hollywood, but it kind of is applicable in the movie Act of Valor, when all the guys on the SEAL team are sitting there with Lieutenant Rourke and stuff, and then Chief Dave, and they're out on the beach, and the families are off to the side, and he gets all the guys together, and he's like, hey, everything's got to be in check before we step off. If something's out of whack, out of balance here, it's going to affect us downrange. So lock it down here before we step off, and we can take care of it.
Get family affairs in line before you head out.
Absolutely. Next.
And next, one of my personal favorites, ownership. Oh shit! The author actually said that too. Son of a bitch. because and this they go on because I see it so much as I call and shop around it. It runs rampant through the business world. This is the proverbial, it's not my job or not my department, or I wasn't here that day, or I don't know anything about that. Just go run it through the
That's
comments.
perfect example, by the way. You're nailing. You're hitting that stereotype right on the head, dude.
Yeah. You're running through all those excuses.
I didn't know.
Customers or people don't care if you were on vacation when something happened and they need help. They don't care if it's not your department. You answered the phone, they're depending on you. You were at the counter to help them now. If you answered the call, you own the call. Or, just take responsibility for your surroundings and also the people that are around you. Owning, going back to one of my personal favorite podcasters and authors, Jocko Willink. I learned a lot about ownership from his book, Extreme Ownership. And then of course the added book, I believe it was, oh my goodness, why am I blanking on the second book? And it's funny,
because it's Friday night and it's 10 o'clock and we're an hour into this and we're
tired. It is 10 o'clock. Yeah. But yeah, you got to own up to what you both have done and have not done. And it just, I'll go on with what the author says, take ownership of the situation. It's not that you'll need to do everything, but taking ownership and making sure the customer knows. I like how she added that, or he or she added that part in where it says it's not that you'll have to do everything, because obviously if you have a team, delegate it out.
The author's name was Nancy. That's why I said it earlier. It's like the mom said, well, Nancy.
Yeah, got it.
It was a lady. By the way.
Royer. Yeah, I wasn't paying attention to any of that. Again, but taking ownership and making sure that the customer knows that you will find out for them are key. As the telephone doctor, I feel it should never take two people to give good customer service. You get the call, you own the call.
So
Um,
what she means by the telephone doctor is the author of this. She is the president of a company called the Telephone Doctor, based out of St.
yes,
Louis, which is a customer service training company. So
correcto
that's
mundo.
what she means by that. So just so you're aware.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, man, um, own it. Own that you have a own that you have a responsibility to do your piece. Own that you um, are responsible for your sphere of influence, no matter how big or small. That includes the people and the things within it. You know, it's kind of one of those things that unfortunately a lot of people do not acknowledge, and it's something that unfortunately a lot of people do not practice in. I mean, it's sad to say it, but you know, both in the military and in the civilian sector, you run into people that will not take ownership for anything they've done. They'll just say
Oh,
like, "Oh yeah, this guy did it." It's like, well, what about you? Oh, I was
that's
just there.
that's called the art of the deflection. It's just like the Teflon specialist, which just bounces off of them, goes to somebody else.
Yep.
Yep. What's the last one? So that was number 6. What's number 7 there, Alamo?
Adaptability. Be able to know what you can do next or be able to figure it out. And it says, granted, this service mentality might need some practice, but it is another important ingredient, characteristic, or trait of the service mentality. Think about the number of people whom you help every day, either on the phone or in person. They're all different, aren't they? Not only in culture, color, or accent, but in mood and personality. We need to be able to adapt to all kinds of personalities. Having difficulty understanding someone, learn to adapt to their particular problem. Ask them if they could please slow down so you can so you can get what they need. Slow talkers, adapting to them is so important, mostly because slow talkers don't like to be rushed. So rushing a slow talker through a conversation will only make it worse. You'll need to adapt to those that are slow talkers. And of course, there's the fast talker to whom you also need to adapt. You know, this article, like, you know, the one thing, this article is looking at everything from kind of like more so of like a business standpoint.
Right.
But
But there are plenty of subtle cues where it does apply to regular everyday life,
everything,
whether it's a
yeah,
service. I mean,
correct.
adaptability. I would think a good contemporary example of that is how you have all these combat arms branches that are now, co-ed. You have
Yeah,
female soldiers now that are infantry soldiers,
yeah.
alongside of guys that are infantry soldiers. So it's like, okay, I'm sure there's some adaptability there. There was,
Oh, yeah.
you have females serving on submarines, which has traditionally been a all male activity in the United States Navy.
Mhm.
Um, I saw a really there's I forget what her name was, but she's a captain, and she is the executive officer of HHC for one of the battalions in Ranger Regiment.
Yeah.
So
I think she actually served with the Ranger Regiment in Afghanistan as a
she
lieutenant.
actually, well,
She was a platoon leader, I thought, if I remember correctly.
she's a platoon leader, yes, and it's different because of the fact that they're special operations forces.
Yeah.
A company commander in the regiment is actually a major versus a captain. A platoon leader is actually the
Ah,
captain.
yeah. Yeah, I
So because
remember that.
it kind of goes up one, but yeah, so she's like the first ranger to go and lead combat troops because she was responsible. She was the
Yeah.
XO of a company. I'm like, that's a lot of adaptability. Again, Ranger Regiment being a very, very prestigious and for the longest time male only, and now we've had, you know, I think upwards of 10 people, females that have gone through Ranger School and stuff, and
Yeah.
there's definitely some adaptability there. I mean, you get different types of personnel, or you reflag to a different unit, and you go from doing one mission to another skill set, and it's like, okay, so yeah, that's. I mean, I like that. That ended up being a really good article, Alamo. I'm glad you found that one. That was a good
Hell
one.
yeah, man.
So to kind of bring this back full circle, let's talk about why service is important. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
So why we gave all these examples of service, going serving the military, getting involved with civic service, civil service, whatever you want to call it. Why is that important? Well, it can do a lot of different things. One, it helps to better your community. It gives you a sense of, like I said earlier in the article, it just gives you a broader sense of, what the world's like. It's not just you're sitting here doing this. You can go and you can interact a lot of, especially like when you get to higher echelons of, leadership and whatnot. I mean, look at the example of there was some press conference that was going on in Hillsborough County. It was the county sheriff. It was the police chief for the city of Tampa. It was the school board. What's his name? Superintendent of schools. And it was also the security police chief for the schools. And they were all talking together and just kind of seeing, obviously it was in regards to a response to what happened in Uvalde, Texas earlier this week. But they were all kind of coming together and saying, this is what we're going to do. This is how this is working. If you have any questions, let us know. We can take care of all this stuff. Service is just, again, it's something you do for the betterment of others. It's pretty much acknowledging that there's something bigger than yourself. I mean,
Correct.
like when Alamo and I joined, America was attacked. We said, we're going to go up and sign our name on the dotted line, write a blank check up to and including our lives to say, I'm going to do my part to safeguard my country so that this stuff never happens again. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to always go that route, but service can be a lot of things. I mean, I know there's a bunch of examples of veterans from our generation, which is a global war on terror generation, that are now getting into politics. There's a guy somewhere in North Carolina, Tony Cowden, I believe he is. He's a master sergeant in Green Berets, and now he's getting involved in politics. And you see a lot of this. There's a lot of guys that have gone and have served during Afghanistan, Iraq, that are kind of transitioning into, let me go and apply what I've learned about leadership and serving other people, serving the subordinates under me, and being a subordinate to those over me, and applying that to the folks back home. That dedication, that drive, that sense of duty. I mean, there's a lot of that goes with that. I remember my grandfather actually was a part of the American Legion post in Zephyrhills, Florida for quite a long time. And he actually was awarded Legionnaire of the Year because he had a service project where there's a hospital there in Zephyrhills and whatnot. And he would take the crossword puzzles out of the newspapers, and he would take them and put them on a piece of cardboard. And then he would also cut out the solution to that, and he would stick it on the back of the cardboard. And what he would do is he would have a whole bunch of these, and he would go to the hospital, and the people that were there, like, long term or had some kind of terminal illness or something like that, he would pass them out. So you do it, and then they'd all be different. So when you see somebody that you might run into it, you might have therapy or a doctor's appointment at the same time, or one time after that, you might be leaving while they're going in. So you could just be like, hey man, you got a crossword puzzle? Yeah, I'm done with it. You want to trade?
Yeah.
And it's just something simple like that, because man, there's a lot of people that end up in the hospital, and you just get that time warp thing where it's just like, I've been here for 3 years. You've been here for a week. It feels like 3 years, man. Whoa. So it's just something simple to pass the time, and it's just doing something for the betterment or the improvement of others. And that was something that he was so proud of. I mean, not only being a part of the Legion, because he did a lot of community projects, community service projects, but just especially for that one, he got his name on a plaque and all this stuff. And I've got it somewhere here in my stuff, but doing things like that. I remember one of the guys I went to high school with. He would actually go. He was in band with me, and he happened to be a trumpet player. And he would go. He was also an ROTC, so on Memorial Day or days of remembrance, he would actually go to the cemeteries and stuff, and he'd be in his ROTC uniform, and he would play taps and stuff. And I'm like, I kind of want to go back and brush up on my playing skills. Maybe I can do that. That'd be kind of cool. So, yeah, I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Just a thought. So that's kind of our talk on service. Oh, did you find out what what that poll said? Did we have any response to that?
Oh, I didn't actually get a chance to actually check it out. I saw when when it was at like 2 replies, I saw, I mean, a couple of people said yes. I think there were a few more answers, but I don't know. I
So
wanted to
the
check it out right now, but I was afraid that if I did it, the music was going to play in it.
okay, that's fine. So go ahead and check it, dude. I'll kind of talk. So what we were talking about last night when we were doing our show prep is we brought up the movie. We are talking about service, and we were consulting our uh, other member of the Battle Pros podcast show. That's Alamo's lovely wife Tisha, who we often use for getting the another opinion, especially from a female point of view, and just somebody who's
Whoa.
doing this kind of
Okay.
stuff. Oh, it looks
Okay.
good.
So according
Okay,
to
so hold on, wait, not yet. So what we did is we talked about we talked about service, and we ended up talking about the movie Starship Troopers. And the reason we brought that up is because the preface, if you haven't seen it, it started off as a novel. I think it's Robert Heinlein, I believe. But the novel is pretty much there's kind of the preface of okay, if the Nazis had won World War II, and in order for you to be a citizen, you had to have service of some type. And there are certain countries in Europe where you have to do 2 years of some type of service to the country, whether it's military, whether it's working in a governmental capacity or whatnot. And we were talking about maybe doing some engagement. And I said, hey, what about if service should be mandatory? Should it be mandatory for people nowadays to have to serve for a minimum time frame of 2 years, as opposed to being an all volunteer force? So Alamo is going to tell us what the results have been so far. So
Yeah. So far it looks like about a 50-50 split.
really,
Yeah.
how many people voted? I know I
It
voted on
looks
it and I said yes. So
I think it's like I think it was like 3 or 4, like probably or was it 4 or 5? Probably like 4 or 5. I don't know, I'm having difficulty actually seeing it or reading it. But it looks like it's about 4 or 5 people, and it's kind of almost like a 50-50 split, really. Um so, I think like a couple people are saying no, a couple people are saying yes. So
I know
I
I said
guess
yes. It popped up on my Facebook. Like, let me start with the first one.
it's kind of divisive, man. It's like a 50-50 split right there. That's actually very surprising. I thought we would have more people saying no than yes.
So please feel free when this video shows up on our YouTube page eventually, or any other of our different usual outfits. If you can leave a comment, let us know what you think about that. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
This is a great point for discussion and engagement with the viewing audience. So,
Hell yeah.
on that note, we're going to start wrapping this up because we've been rambling for a good hours plus. So,
Yeah, we have.
So earlier we mentioned, for those of you that haven't been here before, we were mentioning our buddy John. John is kind of the reason why we have this show. John's a friend of ours that worked in retail with us. We worked at a gun store in Tampa, and we all worked in the same kind of department. So we got John and Alamo and I got to be really good buddies, and kind of fell out of touch with him, unfortunately. And we found out last year that he had, committed suicide, and we were quite shooken up by this. All it takes is for somebody to call and just say, "Hey, man, how's it going? How's it going? How you doing?" And we wish we would have had that opportunity, because John was just such a funny fucker. Like, he was just hilarious. He was he was honestly just one of those guys. He'd give you the shirt off your back. He's like, man, whatever I can do to help, dude. So that's how our show came to be. One of the big things that we try to combat is, the veteran epidemic of 22 military members or veterans a day, choosing to take that route where they choose to solve a temporary problem with a permanent solution.
Yeah.
And we don't want you to do that.
I'm not going to lie. I've actually been trying to, I want to see if the statistic has gotten worse ever since the withdrawal.
That would be an interesting topic. Yeah.
Actually, I was just thinking about looking it up, but actually, if it would be an interesting topic.
Well, to bring up in some way, whether it's social media engagement, all that kind of stuff. So
hell yeah.
But anyway, so there's times when things get rough, and there's times when you're feeling down. We're here to remind you, and it's our mission to just be like, hey, there's always another option. Don't go that route, because that's a one-way street. When you go down that road, there's no coming off of it, and that's not what we want to see. So when we were coming up with the name and kind of like the image of the show, we came up with the name Battle Bros, and then we're like, well, what can we do to what can we do to keep people engaged and keep people reminding them, like, hey, you're worthy, you need to stay here, we want to hear from you. We came up with the Bros Code, so it's easy to remember. Just remember BROS. That's all you got to do. Each one of those each one of those letters represents one of the pillars of the Bros Code. So you have be tenacious. Tenacity is such an important thing in this day and age. I mean, just having a no quit attitude, going out and saying, I'm going to do this to the best of my ability. I took my daughter out for ice cream with like a snow cone, which has been like our tradition for the end of school ever since she started school a couple years ago. And there was this little game outside, and it's like a little metal ring, and you got to like swing it on a rope till it lands on a hook like this. And that's how you get points.
I think I've seen that game that you're talking about.
Yeah. And, she's getting frustrated, and finally she's just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, we're not going home until you do this. Mind you, we're 2 minutes from the house. But I just wanted to show her, it's like, keep going, and you're going to get it, and you're going to feel so much better when you do. And sure as shit, she just put enough English on it and I'm just like, I was cheering loud as hell, man. I was like, that's how you do that. That's what I'm talking about. So when you go do something, man, do it to the fullest of your ability. Be tenacious. Be the best parent. Be the best soldier. The best service member. Be the best civil servant.
The best, sir. Exactly. With honors.
Take something serious. You can always make a fuckery out of it. That's great, Nacho. Thanks. But whatever it is, do it to the best of your ability. If it's being a student, if it's being an athlete, if it's going and working on your service project to make Eagle Scout and the Boy Scout stuff, man, go out there and fucking slay that shit, kill it, man.
Yeah,
do what you can. Refuse to surrender. There's going to be a lot of things that get in your way. There's going to be times when you have to maintain and display some adaptability. As the article said, you're going to have to show some empathy. You're going to have to show some responsibility. Okay. Whatever happens, don't let it get you. Same story. Like I was just saying with my daughter, I didn't want her to quit. I wanted to show her, hey, you can do this as long as you don't quit. And sure as shit, she got it. And it was amazing. We just had our little moment where we're sitting there fist pumping and high fiving on the sidewalk there on the side of this place that game was at. And we just had a great old time. Whatever happens, don't quit until you accomplish what you set out to accomplish.
Damn right.
Don't let things beat you, which kind of goes into the next one. Obliterate your obstacles. These obstacles are gonna try to get you to quit. They're gonna try to get you to surrender. Fuck that shit. Sometimes you got to go over the wall. Sometimes you got to go around the wall. Sometimes you got to go under the wall. Sometimes you got to dig a trench to go whichever way. Sometimes you need to push it over, back a truck into it. Sometimes you got to breach it with some Bangalore C4 and some deck cord. Do it. Sometimes you got to be like, airstrike, stationary target, right to left. Hit it. Green smoke. Whatever. Whatever you got to do, man. You got to call an artillery strike. You got to call a mortar attack. Whatever. Blow that shit up, man. Get it out of your way. Keep doing what you got to do. As long as you're moving towards and accomplishing the objective, hitting the X, man, do it. And I tell you what, man, it's just a wonderful feeling. You get that done. You're just like, fuck yeah, absolutely. The fourth and final tenet of the Battle Bros Code is S. Seek out help from a friend in time of need. Like with the example we give with John, there's nothing that we can do to go back and to change things. And I would give anything, almost anything, to do so. Where we could just say, hey, man, things are rough. Come over. We'll sit there and talk. We'll cry it out. We'll hug it out. Whatever we got to do. We'll bro it up. I don't care. I want you here. I want you to stay here, man. So in the event that you got stuff going on, I mean, reach out to somebody, family members. If they don't always understand where you're coming from, what that looks like, reach out to your old battle buddies, man. Reach out to your buddies that you served with, crewmates, teammates, shipmates, whatever the case may be, guys that were in your squad, platoon, your company, whatever the case may be. Okay. If you don't have anybody you can call, there are resources out there. There's the National Suicide Prevention Hotline that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the number for that is 1-800-273. You're going to pull the banner up there high speed. You're like you're doing something.
Listen here.
Yeah. There you go. Like I was saying, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 1-800-273-8255. Again, that is 1-800-273-8255. It's open 24. What are you laughing at? Because I messed up the number? Shut up. Such a jerk. Please reach out to somebody. Everybody here, you know, whether you served in combat or not, if you served your country, if you gave an act and provided an act of service to the country, you deserve to have your story told. You know, like, you may not always be high speed freaking, you know, Marine or guy that was in Ranger or an SF guy. Okay, great. We got those guys. Not everybody needs to do all that stuff. You still need to have your story told, and we need to thank you and, you know, let you know that you are special and that you are appreciated for your efforts. So no matter what happens, reach out to somebody, call them. If you get a hold of somebody, man, do so. Absolutely. Because, you know, we would hate to lose anybody else to 22 a day. It's 22 is way too many. 1 is way too many. And it hurts even worse when it's somebody, you know, like our buddy John. So
yeah, that shit sucks, bro.
That's the epidemic that we're trying to stop. So I'm pretty much done. I'm going to hand it off to my cohort here. He's going to finish up closing this out, and then we're going to sign the hell off of here. So
if you guys would like to catch us on the social medias, you can do that, and you can find us on the Facebook at facebook.com/BattleBros.podcast. You can also find us on the Insta at BattleBros_podcast. You can also write us on those platforms via the instant messengers that are on those platforms, and you can also contact us on the Facebook via the WhatsApp. All you have to do is go down to the link in our to the link on our Facebook page, click that little green button with the little phone symbol in it, and you can leave us a message and you can contact us there. We will answer. I can promise you I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can because it's linked directly to me. You can also catch us on battlebrospc@gmail.com if you want to go ahead and write us. I do encourage you guys to write us if you got any questions, any kind of suggestions for topics. We're willing to do whatever you guys want in terms of, you know, what you guys want to talk about, what you guys want to hear us talk about. We're listening. We're here. Send it. We'll hear it. You can also catch us over on the Rumble. Go to rumble.com. Go ahead and click in the description, Battle Bros, and you'll find us right there on the Rumble as well. You can find us here on the YouTube. You can find us on Anchor. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Amazon Music, CastBox, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Stitcher, as well as Spotify. And those are all of our audio platforms. Also, if you guys want to support us, you don't have to, but it ain't gonna stop us from enjoying that little you give us. You could do that over on the Anchor app, or you could do it on the Anchor you could do it on the Anchor website via your browser. All you got to do is when you click on the Battle Bros podcast page, go down to the support button, click that little support button, and go ahead and donate whatever you feel like. Everything from $1 to $10. Or you can customize. Just remember also here, to like, share, and subscribe. The most important one being share now, specifically because YouTube has changed up the algorithm again. And of course, now sharing is caring. So if you guys share that, if you guys go ahead and share the video, it's going to be much easier for us. And you get the views out there for us. And it also helps get the message out there. So I definitely recommend you guys doing that. And that would help us out quite a bit. Other than that, man, I've got nothing else. Let's close it out, Britta.
Yeah, man. So just remember, everybody, thank you so much for taking the time to join us for these discussions, interviews, whatever we have on the show at that particular time. We greatly appreciate you helping us out, supporting us just by giving us a listen, giving us a watch. The most crucial part of this is knowing that it's not necessarily you that may need help, but you passing it along to somebody may actually get the message to who it needs to get to. So,
baby.
It's all about, passing along word of mouth. We're still a growing podcast to where we, don't have the budget for a lot of stuff yet, but we're getting there. But you just know that, it's all about paying it forward. You might pass it along somebody to pass it along somebody to some guy who's watched this, who's really thinking about going down that one-way street. And it's just like, okay, these guys actually have a good message. I'm going to sit there and talk about it and get some help. So that's what it's all about. We're trying to stop that 22 a day epidemic. So again, thank you so much. We humbly are we are so humble and gracious that you guys take the time out to check us out and watch us every week. This has quickly become a labor of love that we enjoy doing, and it's kind of depressing when we don't have the opportunity to put it on every single week for various reasons. But just know that, this is something that we take very seriously. We enjoy doing this, and we hope that you guys will come back and see us next week. Thank you again for joining us. This has been episode 032, talking about service on the Battle Pros podcast with Mac and Alamo. We hope to see you again next time that we're on, which should be next week. Same time of 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Friday night. So until then, we want to say thanks so much. Be safe out there. Look out for one another, and do what you can to help others out around you. And just know that, it's all about, getting the group stronger. So until then, we're going to sign off, and hope to see you guys next time.
Battle Bros